Welcome back to the program. I am Cherry Ojukwu. If you are a regular viewer of Afia TV, the man sitting next to me needs absolutely no introduction. You are used to seeing him break down the latest weekend fixtures or giving us the sports updates. And off air, he is an ordained pastor who helps keep some of us grounded. Today, my colleague, Cece Emechebe, is trading his sports hat for a moment to help me unpack the very sobering report we just watched from Nsukka. Mr. Emechebe, welcome to this side of the studio. It's always great to share a desk with you, even if the topic we have to discuss, on the side is quite heavy. So welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's always great to be here to help unpack things. No, Cherry, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Sir. So to start off, as a colleague who watches these reports come through our newsroom, what stands out to you the most about the Ugwuoye community's year-long struggle and the timeline Elijah Akuma just presented?
Well, basically, I think, first of all, my heart goes out to the indigents and residents of Ugwuoye community. It's not easy being perceived as a community that has been abandoned for a while, abandoned by those who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that your welfare is primary concern, because the flooding, now quite all right, we know that flash flooding happens in certain areas normally. It's a normal thing. The topography of that region in Nsukka is not exactly friendly when it comes to floods and the effects of floods, but that's one of the reasons you have governments in place and government agencies that are designed and assigned to ensure that you mitigate the effects of flooding. There are some areas that are prone to flooding and then the negative effects. Yeah. You see things like erosion and everything that happens, that makes sure that the flood affects more than necessary. But that's why governments are meant to be proactive. It's been 1 year. That's not an excuse at all. I feel to answer your question, basically, because I'm trying to bring out the empathetic side of things. To answer your question, I felt a sense of despair. I could feel the despair of the people. You could see the lady crying out, the people living there, how their businesses have been ravaged and affected. I know that there is a ramified set of implications that are there that make people look and then see how bad things are generally in their lives. So really, you just have to identify with the hearts of the people and then wonder why help is not coming as and when due.
Yeah, my heart goes out to them as well. So we've been reporting on the Ugwuoye flood for a full year now. So as a fellow media professional, how do you manage the frustration of highlighting a crisis repeatedly without seeing a resolution?
It is very frustrating because, coming from the standpoint of a media practitioner, one who is tasked with the responsibility of covering the event, normally there is that sense of, first of all, you should be a person of empathy, but you should be in control of your emotions and in control of your reflexes, because you have to provide an unbiased report, an objective report of what's going down. And it's not just about, bringing about reports, it's also about putting the feet of the government agencies that are responsible for alleviating the suffering of the people in question, putting their feet to the fire, because that's what the media is meant to do. The media serve as watchdogs that put the government on their toes. I'm talking about an uncompromised media, a media that is not used as a campaign tool or a political tool, a media that is free, that is independent of partisan politics. That's what I'm talking about in an ideal world. So that's our job. So when we do these things, and then we see that as we're reporting these issues, like right now, the case in point is the floods that have devastated the entire community of Ugwuoye for the past 1 year, and still nothing seems to be done. You report what's going on, you tell everybody what's going on, you let the government officials that are aware, that should be aware, because sometimes they lose sight of it. There are other priorities. Sadly, there are priorities. Maybe they don't seem to prioritize the floods there. But it's our job to keep them on their toes and make them remember, look, you made promises, because promises were made concerning the floods, that relief was going to come to the inhabitants of the land. But when you then see the frustration that is etched on the faces of the inhabitants of the community, you yourself, even if you're not a member of that community, like I'm not a member of Ugwuoye, I don't even come from Enugu State, let alone Ugwuoye there in Nsukka. But being a human being, being somebody who understands the plight of people and then regularly listens to their problems and issues and then counsel them from time to time, it is very frustrating, and it's very natural to buy that frustration too and put you at I think, let me say, put you at the crossroads. Now, when I say crossroads, this is what I mean. You have to balance your professionalism as a journalist and then your responsibility as a human being whose relatives, whose friends, whose colleagues, whose acquaintances have been affected directly or indirectly by the issues on ground, like the flooding in this case. So really keeping a straight face and then reporting the news and not breaking down and then venting your frustration, because truth be told, when you see that some government officials who are tasked with that responsibility of ensuring that the flood matters are dealt with, we'll get to that in a bit, the solutions to this issue, because we are looking at the problems. Every problem has a solution. There has to be the willpower to bring that solution to the fore. But when you see that, you just get frustrated. It's lingered for too long. 1 year is too long to accommodate this kind of tragedy, and everybody is still suffering. And the funny thing is that there doesn't seem to be any hope in the horizon because of the promises that have been broken.
Okay, so wearing your hat as an ordained pastor, how do you view the moral obligations of leaders who make public promises to vulnerable communities and fail to see them through?
Now, I don't want to seem as though I have a vendetta or a personal axe to grind with any member of any community. I really don't. I don't know the leaders. I don't know the local government chairman in that area. I don't know the key officials that that call the shots and make sure that things are done as and when due. But what I can say from a pastoral standpoint is this: it is very, very disheartening, very disappointing, very frustrating, very animus inspiring. Let me put it that way. For you, when you see people who are public officials who have a responsibility to provide security for the people and to safeguard them and create an enabling environment for them to thrive. The environment is not enabled at all because of the floods and the effects of the floods. Then you go there, make promises, trying to score political points, campaign promises, trying to build up trust in the people. The good book says it this way. It said that hope deferred makes the heart sick. But when the desire comes, it's the tree of life. So whenever delay expectation is in the picture, people's hearts become very sick and frustrated. And it tells more about the one that makes the promise than the one who is to receive the promise. It shows that you're not reliable. It shows that you're not trustworthy. It shows that nobody can actually bank on you when the chips are down. Even the Bible says it clearly. I think that's in Proverbs 25, verse 19. It says, confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot set out of joint. Now, this is a time of trouble. It's not just a time of trouble. It's been a year of trouble, a year of woes, a year of broken promises, a year of broken vehicles, a year of broken businesses, a year of broken families, broken homes, because some of those houses, I'm talking about the erosion and then the fact that the floods have tested the structural integrity of the foundations of those houses. Some houses have collapsed. You're looking at alternative routes that have been sought to pass the heavily flooded areas because vehicles have broken down there, and that's causing further traffic congestion and pile up and a gridlock. So people are suffering regularly. But the people that made those promises, rest assured, the ones that made those promises, you can actually check it very well. Most of them do not suffer what the people are suffering because they are living in more urbanized areas, more urbanized regions that are not affected by the floods and the effects of the flood. So really, at the end of the day, you're doing yourself more harm than good, morally and otherwise, as a government official. If you make a promise and the people are waiting for that promise, their hopes are high and they are suffering, but you're still not showing up to do that. I mean, who does that? Who really does that?
Quite unfair. So the report notes that residents now experience anxiety simply from seeing clouds gather. So what does that level of conscious or constant psychological and emotional stress do to the spirit of a community?
It does more harm than you can imagine. What one will term as, imagine looking at showers of blessings, and those showers of blessings to one group of people who have not been affected will create apprehension and make them start seeing a deluge of terror. I mean, literally speaking, where the heavens open, rain falls. We already see how they are going through the flood problems. Then when the rains fall more, you're building up more floods that can create more health hazards, more biological hazards, more environmental hazards. It really is very, very psychologically damning, the trauma, the PTSD that the people are going through. And why is that? Because help doesn't seem to be on the way. Help doesn't seem to be on the way. They feel like people are abandoned. It breaks the spirit of a person. When you've sent an SOS, you sent a cry for help, sent out a cry for help, nobody seems to be responding. And then the general impression, whenever you're a member of the masses and then you issue a cry for help, and then there's no response, there's no speedy response. In some cases, there's no response at all. The general perception is this, that you have been abandoned, that you are deplorable, that you are expendable, you're just one of the numbers, you're a mere statistic. And this doesn't bode well at all for the community. And at the end of the day, also, it doesn't bode well for the powers that be, because one of the best things you can do, and I don't mean this from a hypocritical standpoint, but I'm saying psychologically, one of the best things you can do to a community where you are a public official who has been elected to public office, one of the best things you can do is to ensure that you fulfill your promises to safeguard them, because especially this period, this is an electoral cycle. The elections are coming up next year. And then there's going to be a chain effect of, votes of confidence and votes of no confidence. If you are not there when the people needed you the most, to speak for them, to enforce, measures that will make sure that the community is dredged of the flooding issue. You get SWMA officials, for instance, to go there and ensure to enforce, to penalize those who are dropping, because at the end of the day, it's not just the government. You have to talk about the inhabitants of the communities. Those drainages that are there, those gutters that are there, it's not government officials that go and pack dirt and debris over there. They are there, they do that, but we've not seen any case of orientations and sensitization to the people there, because sorry to say, but a good number of them are illiterate, who don't understand the ramified implications of what they do, the actions that they carry out to make that place, the drainages and the gutters blocked up. But still, psychologically, no matter what, your job is to teach the people what to do, how to do the right thing as and when due. But psychologically, it's a massive blow, and I really feel for them. They need therapy. They do need therapy, because when you see everything that you've worked for within a long period of time just fall apart before your eyes, and you're helpless to do anything about it, especially if you live in that community and you don't have anywhere else to go. So really, it's something that takes its toll psychologically on the people. And I hope the government are watching and do what needs to be done very quickly.
Okay, so given your primary beat in sports and youth programming, how does a perennial environmental disaster like this affect the physical development, recreation, and education of the young people in Nsukka?
It affects everything, because, for you to be able to, like, for instance, in the sporting sector, for instance, you have to go for trainings, you have to get access to facilities, and these facilities that are there, because we don't have too many facilities in the country, I'm sorry to say. In Nigeria, for instance, you talk about sports villages. They are not. I remember when we used to have sports villages there in Lagos, because I grew up in Lagos. I remember back then in 1999, where I stayed in a sports village there. I just, doing a program, I stayed there. I was an undergraduate University of Lagos at the time, stayed in the sports village. Then I don't know what has become of the sports village there in Lagos, the Olympic village. That is the Olympic village. And other states are meant to have their sports villages. So sports facilities that are there, and then also all the other facilities, educational facilities, because no flood comes to a facility and then says, oh, are you a government facility? Okay, fine, we skip, we'll pass over, jump and pass. Are you a sporting facility? Okay, let's attack you right now because you're not useful to the community and economy and all that. So really, at the end of the day, everything is affected. The training regimen, the semi-regimented lives of sports athletes, of students who go to school, of even workers, because many workers miss work. They don't even have access routes to work. It affects everybody there, because all the facilities that you want to gain access to are compromised, severely compromised. The ones that have not fallen yet are on their way to falling because their foundational structure has been severely eroded because of the floods. No proper drainage system. The culverts that are there, the houses that have been built, sometimes they don't foresee, because like we said before, some of these communities are prone to floods. They are prone to erosion. So if a place is prone to erosion, you be proactive enough to make sure that the topography of where you are is factored in. So let there be a slope so that if water builds up, it flows down instead of accumulating, because accumulated water from the floods will then affect the buildings. So it affects everything: sports, education, everything involved. So really, at the end of the day, we just have to look at the government to do what needs to be done, because everybody is feeling the heat from this.
And the report highlighted that the incomplete drainage, as you mentioned, actually worsened the water flow. How damaging are these half measures to the psychological well-being of the residents?
Extremely damaging, because if you're going to solve a problem, go out with your full chest and solve it once and for all. Do what needs to be done there. Find out the mitigating problems and what leads to the build-up. You can't stop floods from coming. You can't stop rain from falling. That's the gift of God. What you can do is manage the downpour of the rain. What you can do is redirect the waterways to ensure that it does more good than harm to the community. So back to the issue of drainages, we talked about that. We can't overemphasize it. The drainages have to be revisited. We have a relatively poor drainage culture or system here in Enugu State. That's the simple truth. So it needs to be revisited. You have to consider other options that divert, because we're talking about water diversion right now. Why should you go to a place where that's prone to floods, and then you have a lot of concrete pavements in that area, and those concrete pavements prevent water from getting into the soil and then soaking down and then escaping deep where they belong. So they pile up, and then it causes more harm than good. So why not plant trees? For instance, you can plant trees that are there that are usually very water absorbent. Then what you're doing is that you're redirecting the water, redirecting the floods, and then you're managing the situation. They've not shown how proactive they are meant to be in managing the situation. So it is a problem. I don't like talking about problems, but it's better to fix the problem than to fix the blame. So at the end of the day, all hands on deck. Everybody needs to do what they need to do to make sure that we're not here a year from now celebrating, quote unquote, an extra year of a flood that was not attended to properly.
So if you have the opportunity to sit down directly with the political figures who rallied in Ugwuoye this past April, what would be your specific charge to them today?
I will charge them. I'll tell them point blank. I'll say, look, you were entrusted with a mandate, and that mandate was to protect the lives and property of the people in your community. You came out and made promises. You are on your own, minding your business. Those promises are not meant to be mere political promises. You're meant to be what we say in this part of the world, talk now do. In other words, you're willing to put your money where your mouth is and solve a problem, because the essence of government is for problem solving. You have to stop politicizing things, first of all. Leave politicking. Politicking is for the purpose of securing the power. Now you secure the power, you're in the seat of power. The next thing you do is you enter into governance and begin to govern, begin to lead the people, begin to provide the basic amenities and necessary facilities and infrastructure that they need to thrive, because the environment has a way of affecting productivity. And if the floods are not attended to, if the floods are not redirected, then the productivity of the people that you're called to serve is going to dwindle greatly. So that will be my charge to them. You made a promise. This is 1 year later. You are doing more harm to your reputation than you know. Go and fulfill that promise and then win back the trust of the people.
So from your experience, when a community loses trust in its local government due to broken deadlines, what alternative paths do they have to force concrete action?
The good book says appeal to Caesar, but sometimes that means if Caesar is listening. In this case, if your direct representatives who are meant to handle those matters do nothing, and it's lingering. Nothing is going about that. We know that there are some very, very illustrious sons of the soil. Like we see, I'll give you a typical example. You go to some parts of the state, you go to some inroads and streets that have been very, very damaged. Erosion has affected them, and then for reasons best known to them, maybe the councillor of a particular ward where those streets are, or the local government chairman of that entire local government area that is bedeviled with many broken down streets, they've not responded as and when due. So sometimes we see very wealthy and influential members of that community decide to take the law in their own hands and do something about that. So in this case, if the government is not stepping in as fast as they should, and believe me, 1 year is more than enough time, they've not stepped in. That means they need to take the law in their hands and then go there. Their most illustrious sons who are there, because every community has illustrious sons and very influential people who can at least start something. When you start that thing, there are either two things that happen. When I say start something, embark on a campaign to alleviate the suffering of people, work on the drainage, do something there, get the drainage systems to start working again, go and lobby the environmental, that's the Enugu State Waste Management Authority, ESWAMA, get them, if they are not, get them, motivate them, give them incentives to come, and then do some enforcement there, severely punish those who are always causing more harm than good by clogging the drainage system. So the point I'm trying to make is this: when those members of the community who have the wherewithal start doing something, they tend to put the government to shame. When I say government, I don't mean the state government. I mean the particular people there, the ward councillors, the local government chairman, and all the other stakeholders. They put them to shame. They put their feet to the fire. It's not good for their reputation. Optics are very important. So they will then continue from where they stop. But the point is, start something. Start something. Just start.
So, okay, from both a media and spiritual perspective, what is your message of counsel to frustrated residents like Charity Shu, who felt abandoned and everything? And what is your final charge to the authorities who have the power to change this narrative?
Okay, to the affected people of the community, Charity Shu, listening to her, when I saw her crying, I felt very bad, being somebody who is a pastor and a parent, a husband, and, you see people going through these things. We'll have to say this, hope is one of the most valuable commodities that you can have. Hold on to hope. And when I say hope, I mean authentic hope, organic hope, because there are other kinds of hope flying around. I'm not talking about that. But, hold on to hope, trust God, just be strong. Don't let anything break your spirit. Help is on the way. It's going to come. Just believe it's going to come. There are things you need to do yourselves. I'm talking to Charity and Ishu and then all the other members of the community, but her as a point of contact is what I'm using. Just hold on to hope. I know hope is not a business strategy, but you can't live without hope. You need to hope that things are going to change, because this awareness is going to make things begin to change even more. Then to the officials, the people who are involved, you need to listen to the plight of the people and do what needs to be done. Make them smile again. It costs nothing. It costs nothing to fulfill the promises, because the ability, the capacity to solve the problems is there. What is lacking, what we have seen, is a combination of the empathy and the willpower to solve those problems. So that narrative has to change to restore public trust.
Very well. Thank you. And that's much that we can take on the Eastern Business Report. The Afia Business Morning returns tomorrow. Many thanks for staying with us. My name is Cherry Ojukwu. Bye for now.